Vice President Kamala Harris selects Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to be her running mate. And here's what we know about Walz. He's in his second term as Minnesota governor. He was first elected in 2018, elected again in 2022. Before that, he served 5 terms as a Minnesota congressman. He's been a teacher and a member of the Army National Guard.
Analysts say that Harris is hoping to strengthen her ticket in the Midwest. So let's bring back North Central College political science professor William Muck.
Good to see you again.
Yes, good to see you for sure. So what's your reaction to finally learning who Harris has now picked as her running mate?
Well, it's not shocking, but it is a little bit surprising. I think many of us thought that Harris would go with the safe choice, and Josh Shapiro felt like the safe choice that might help her win Pennsylvania. Walz is more of a wild card, right? It suggests that she's thinking bigger and that beyond just Pennsylvania, she believes that Walz might help you get Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. I think they must think that he's got a pretty dramatic upside as they move forward. So it caught a little bit of us off guard in the sense that Walz was sort of seen as a long shot just a couple weeks ago.
You know, it was interesting looking at his background, and he's like a Midwest powerhouse, as you said earlier, because his old congressional district bordered Iowa, so he's almost got Iowa and Minnesota kind of in the bag. And then he also was born in Nebraska.
Yeah, so he's an interesting candidate in the sense that he's more progressive, right? So he's left of center, probably more liberal than Kamala Harris, but nevertheless, he has this rural, sort of Midwestern, nice way of making the case. I mean, he's a gun owner, has ties to farming industry, was a social studies teacher. So this will be a different vehicle for making the case for progressive causes than we usually see. Now, certainly Donald Trump and Vance will be able to attack them for their liberal policies, but Walz is a different type of candidate who's more of a rural candidate, a blue-collar guy he's a very effective campaign messenger on those issues.
I was going to ask you, mentioned J.D. Vance. How do you think that Walz matches up to J.D. Vance if the two were to have a debate down the line?
It's going to be a really interesting conversation because both of them are trying to appeal to the same type of voter, right? So they're thinking about rural, blue-collar voters, small town voters, and both of them will have that type of messaging. I mean, in some ways, Walz, you see him with his hat and a T-shirt. He is not your typical liberal elite, right? So I think that's going to be a really fascinating question to see who can be more appealing to rural voters, who can be more appealing to independents. And again, Harris and Walz are not going to win all of those, but if they can peel some of those voters away, that will be really, really effective for them in the campaign.
Professor Muck, thanks so much for your time twice this morning. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.